Her date introduced by her best friend spiked her drink. Imani had learned, over the years, to trust her instincts. They had saved her more times than she could count. Yet that evening, as she stood in front of her mirror adjusting the delicate strap of her black dress, her instincts were unusually quiet, muted beneath something else. Hope, perhaps. Or exhaustion. Or the simple desire to believe that for once, things might go right. Her apartment smelled faintly of vanilla and shea butter, the comforting scent of familiarity. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual impatience, horns blaring, voices overlapping, life happening whether she was ready for it or not. Imani took one last look at her reflection. She looked good, not just polished, but powerful in that understated way. Deep brown skin glowing under soft lighting, natural curls pinned back just enough to frame her face. The kind of beauty that didn't beg for attention, but commanded it anyway. Her phone buzzed on the dresser. Lila. Imani smiled instinctively. Lila had been her best friend since college, her confidant, her safe place, the one who'd held her hair back during heartbreaks and toasted to new beginnings with cheap wine and loud laughter. He's perfect for you, Lila had insisted earlier that week. Successful. Handsome. No drama. I promise. Imani had laughed then, skeptical but curious. Dating had become tiring. Endless conversations that went nowhere. Men who were intimidated by her independence or attracted only to the surface of her confidence, never the substance beneath it. So when Lila sounded unusually enthusiastic, Imani allowed herself to be persuaded. Now, as she picked up her phone, a message flashed across the screen. You're going to love him. Tonight is your reset. A reset. Imani exhaled slowly, grabbed her clutch, and locked the door behind her. The lounge was the kind of place that whispered luxury rather than shouting it. Dim amber lights bathed the room in warmth. Plush velvet seats. A polished marble bar lined with bottles that looked like art pieces. Music flowed softly, jazz layered with something modern, sensual, deliberate. Imani paused just inside the entrance, taking it all in. She didn't miss details. Never had. Her heels clicked softly as she walked toward the hostess, her presence drawing subtle glances from across the room. Some curious, some admiring, some lingering just a second too long. She was led to a secluded table near the center, close enough to the bar to feel alive but distant enough to be private. Imani sat, smoothing her dress, her eyes drifting around the room. That was when she felt it. The sensation wasn't dramatic, no chill, no sudden awareness, but a quiet pressure. Like being studied. Unseen. Across the lounge, partially hidden by shadows and glass, a man sat alone in a private booth. He hadn't looked at her when she entered, hadn't reacted at all. But now, his gaze rested on her with an intensity that made the air feel heavier. Min Jae-hyuk. He was used to rooms bending subtly around him, used to observing without being observed. Power had taught him patience, silence, restraint. And yet, the moment Imani walked in, something shifted. She didn't carry herself like someone seeking validation. She didn't scan the room for approval. She simply was composed, elegant, aware. Dangerously so. Min didn't smile. He simply watched. Imani? The voice broke her thoughts. She turned. Jaden stood before her with an easy smile, dressed sharply in a navy suit that fit well enough to suggest effort. He was handsome in a conventional way, clean-cut, confident, practiced. Not threatening. Not memorable either. Jaden, she said, standing to greet him. They shook hands. His grip lingered just a beat longer than necessary. Lila's told me a lot about you, he said, eyes roaming briefly before settling back on her face. I feel like I already know you. Imani smiled politely. Only the good parts, I hope. He laughed a little too smoothly. The best parts. They sat. Almost immediately, Jaden flagged down the waiter. Drinks? He asked, not waiting for her answer. What do you like? Imani hesitated. I'll just have something light, he cut in smoothly. Trust me. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't rude. But it was dismissive. A tiny knot formed in Imani's chest. Still, she said nothing. From his booth, Min noticed everything. The interruption. The way Jaden leaned just slightly too close. The way Imani's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The waiter nodded and walked away. So, Jaden said, folding his hands on the table. Lila says you're a powerhouse. Career-focused. Not the settling type. Imani raised a brow. She talks a lot. He grinned. She worries about you. That surprised her. Why? Jaden shrugged. She said you've been through enough. That you deserve someone safe. Safe. The word didn't sit right. Before Imani could respond, the drinks arrived. 2 identical glasses, crystal clear, garnished perfectly. Jaden slid one toward her. To new beginnings, he said. Imani lifted her glass, her reflection shimmering on the surface of the liquid. Across the room, Min stood. As he passed their table, his shoulder brushed it gently. The glasses shifted, just slightly. Sorry, he said calmly. Imani looked up. Their eyes met. Something electric passed between them. Recognition without understanding, warning without words. Jaden waved it off with a laugh. No worries. Min walked away. Imani took a sip. And far away, unnoticed, the wrong glass settled into the wrong hands. Imani didn't notice the moment the night began to tilt. At first, everything felt normal, pleasant even. The glass in her hand was cool, the drink crisp and lightly sweet as it slid down her throat. The lounge hummed with low conversation and laughter, the kind of curated noise that made loneliness feel optional. Jaden watched her over the rim of his own glass. He smiled when she took another sip. Imani caught it, the way his eyes followed the movement of her lips, not with desire, but with something sharper. Calculating. Expectant. She told herself she was reading too much into it. You okay? He asked casually, leaning back in his chair. Yes, she said, nodding. Just tired. Long week. Good. He replied quickly, too quickly, then corrected himself with a chuckle. I mean, yeah, I get that. Work will do that to you. Imani tilted her head slightly. There it was again. That subtle wrongness. Across the room, Min Jae-hyuk's gaze never left the table. He had seen the exchange at the bar clearly. Too clearly. Jaden's posture when he leaned in. The bartender's hesitation. The way the man's fingers curled protectively around his own glass after the exchange, as if guarding a secret. Min had not intervened immediately. Power taught restraint, but it also taught patience and precision. From his vantage point, he watched Imani lift the glass meant for Jaden. Watched Jaden do nothing to stop her. That was when Min knew. This wasn't clumsiness. This wasn't chance. It was intent. Imani felt it next. Not dizziness. Not yet. But a faint warmth spreading through her chest, settling low in her stomach. Not unpleasant. Just unfamiliar. She set the glass down. Jaden noticed instantly. Everything all right? He asked again. Yes, she said, smiling softly. I think I just need water. His jaw tightened for a fraction of a second. Oh, sure. Yeah. I'll flag someone down. He raised his hand to signal the waiter, but his movements weren't smooth anymore. There was tension beneath his calm, like a thread pulled too tight. Imani leaned back in her chair, studying him now with sharper focus. She thought of Lila. How her best friend had insisted on this date. How eager she'd been to hand Jaden's number over. How she'd emphasized that he was trustworthy. A chill crept up Imani's spine. What do you do, Jaden? She asked suddenly. He blinked. Consulting. Business strategy. You know. No, she said calmly. I don't. He laughed again, a sound that didn't quite land. Yeah, well, it's complicated. The waiter arrived with water. Jaden didn't touch his drink again. Instead, he watched Imani drink the water, watched her hands, her throat, her breathing, as though waiting for something to happen. That's when her instincts finally screamed. Imani pressed her palm lightly against her chest. The warmth had deepened now. Her thoughts felt slower at the edges, as if wrapped in cotton. The room seemed louder, brighter, too close. But she was still there, still herself. What did you put in the drink? She asked quietly. Jaden froze. Across the room, Min rose from his seat. Jaden recovered quickly, or tried to. What? He scoffed. That's crazy. Imani's gaze didn't waver. I'm very aware of my body, she said evenly. And something isn't right. Jaden's smile faltered. For the first time, irritation crept through his mask. You're overthinking, he said, leaning forward. Just relax. Lila said you do that, getting your head too much. The mention of Lila felt like a slap. Don't, Imani warned softly. Don't use her to gaslight me. Jaden's eyes hardened. He reached for his glass at last and took a long sip. Min stopped just a few steps away, observing. Seconds passed. Then Jaden blinked.
Once. Twice.
His hand trembled. What the? He coughed, grabbing the edge of a table. Imani stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. What's happening to you? She asked, alarm creeping into her voice. Jaden tried to stand. He didn't make it. His legs buckled, his body slamming back into the chair before sliding sideways to the floor. Gasps rippled through the lounge. Someone screamed. Security rushed forward. Min stepped in seamlessly, his presence commanding attention without force. He's unwell, Min said calmly. Call emergency services. Jaden's eyes rolled back as his body convulsed slightly. Imani backed away, heart pounding, not from fear, but from realization. The drink. The glasses. Her gaze snapped to Min. He was watching her, not with concern alone, but with certainty, like a man who knew exactly how close she'd come to losing everything. Minutes later, Jaden was carried out on a stretcher, unconscious and exposed under harsh, white lights. The lounge buzzed with whispers. Imani stood frozen near the table, her hands shaking now that adrenaline had taken over. Min approached her slowly. You should sit, he said gently. She looked at him, really looked
tall,
controlled, eyes sharp but not cruel. Did you do something? She asked. No, he replied truthfully. I prevented something. Her breath hitched. What was supposed to happen to me? Min hesitated. Sometimes truth was heavier than lies. That drink, he said carefully, was never meant for him. Silence wrapped around them. Imani swallowed hard. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. A text message lit up the screen. Lila.
So?
Is he handling you well? The last thread of innocence snapped. Imani closed her eyes, steadying herself. When she opened them again, she met Min's gaze with a new understanding. Someone tried to hurt me, she said quietly. Yes, Min agreed. And you saw it coming. I stopped it. Imani nodded slowly. Then she did something that surprised even herself. She trusted him. Don't leave, she said. Min's jaw tightened. I won't. And somewhere deep beneath the city lights, consequences began to stir. Imani didn't remember sitting down. One moment she was standing, staring at the space where Jaden had collapsed, and the next she was in a velvet chair near the wall, a glass of water trembling in her hands. The lounge felt different now. Too bright, too loud, like the illusion of luxury had cracked open to reveal something rotten beneath. People whispered openly. Phones were out. Eyes followed her. She hated that part the most. Take slow breaths, a woman from the staff murmured kindly. You're safe. Safe. The word felt fragile. Temporary. Across the room, Min Jae-hyuk stood with one hand tucked into his coat pocket, speaking quietly to security. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. People listened anyway. When his gaze returned to Imani, it was steady, anchoring.
She focused on that.
Because if she didn't, she might fall apart. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. Then again. And again. Finally, with fingers that felt too heavy to control, she looked down. Lila. Missed call. Another missed call. Then a text. Why isn't he answering? Imani? What happened? Imani's stomach twisted. Her best friend sounded worried. But now, worry read differently. Now it felt like panic. She stood up abruptly. I need air, she said to no one in particular. Min was at her side instantly. This way, he said, guiding her toward a quieter hallway near the restrooms and private rooms. The noise dulled behind them, replaced by muffled music and distant voices. Imani leaned against the wall, pressing her palm to her forehead. I could have sworn I was fine, she whispered. I didn't feel dizzy.
I didn't feel weak.
Min studied her carefully. The dosage was calculated, he said. To disorient, not incapacitate immediately. Her head snapped up. You know a lot about this. His expression didn't change. I know men like him. A silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken truths. Imani's breath came unevenly now. That drink, she said slowly, was supposed to make me what? Min didn't answer right away. Some truths, once spoken, could never be taken back. It was meant to make you vulnerable, he said finally.
Confused.
Easily led. Her chest tightened. And then what? Min's jaw flexed. That part varies. Imani closed her eyes. The images came uninvited, being guided out of the lounge, being told she was just tired, waking up somewhere unfamiliar with gaps in her memory and a shame she couldn't name. Her knees nearly buckled. Min caught her before she fell. He didn't pull her close, didn't touch more than necessary, just steadied her. That didn't happen, he said firmly. And it won't. She nodded, tears burning behind her eyes. I trusted him, she whispered. I trusted her. Outside, night air wrapped around them like a cold truth. Imani leaned against a column near the entrance, breathing deeply. The city lights blurred slightly, not from the drink, but from emotion. Min stood beside her, not crowding her, not leaving. Why were you watching us? She asked quietly. It wasn't accusation. It was curiosity laced with fear. He glanced toward the street before answering. I was watching him, he said. You were collateral, until you weren't. She studied his profile, the sharp lines softened by passing headlights. And then I saw a woman who didn't deserve what was coming. Imani swallowed. Her phone rang again. This time, she answered. Imani, Lila's voice rushed out, breathless. What happened? Jaden isn't responding, and someone said there were ambulances. Why him? Imani interrupted. A pause. Too long. What do you mean? Lila asked carefully. Why him? Imani repeated, her voice eerily calm. Why did you introduce me to him? Silence stretched on the other end of the line. Then Lila laughed nervously. Girl, what is this? Are you drunk? Imani's grip tightened around the phone. Did you know? She asked softly. Did you know what he planned to do to me? Min watched her closely now. Lila exhaled sharply. You're being dramatic, she said. It was just a date. Imani smiled bitterly. You told him I overthink. You told him I needed someone safe. You told him things I never said out loud. Another pause. Then, quieter. He said he'd take care of you. That was it. The final piece sliding into place. Imani felt something inside her go still. He paid you, she said flatly. Lila didn't deny it. I needed the money, she whispered. And he said it wasn't a big deal. Just drinks. Just vibes. Imani closed her eyes. You sold me, she said. For money. It wasn't supposed to hurt you. Lila cried. Imani ended the call. Her hands shook, not from weakness, but rage. Min said nothing. He didn't have to. The police lights flashed briefly in the distance as the ambulance pulled away. Imani watched it disappear. So that's it, she said hollowly.
She's gone. He's gone.
My whole life just shifted. Min turned to her. No, he said. Your illusions did. She laughed softly, brokenly. What happens now? She asked. He considered her. Now, he said, you choose what you want to do with the truth. She met his gaze. And you, she asked. What do you want?
A beat.
To make sure no one ever thinks they can touch you again. Something about the way he said it, calm, assured, made her believe him. Imani straightened her shoulders. Then she nodded. Then don't leave, she said again. Not yet. Min inclined his head slightly. I won't. Behind them, unseen and unheard, consequences began to move, quietly, inevitably, toward everyone who thought this night would end without a price. The city never slept, but that night it felt like it was holding its breath. Imani sat in the passenger seat of Min's car as it slipped smoothly through traffic, the interior quiet except for the low hum of the engine. Leather seats, faint traces of cedar and something darker. Expensive, controlled, intentional. Everything about the space felt curated for privacy. She stared out the window, watching streetlights streak past like memories she couldn't quite grab onto. Moments ago, she'd hesitated before getting in. Not because she feared him, but because she knew that once she did, there would be no returning to the version of herself who believed betrayal always came from strangers. Tell me where we're going, she said finally. Min kept his eyes on the road. Somewhere safe, he replied. Somewhere no one will interrupt. She nodded. That was enough. Her phone lay heavy in her lap. She hadn't blocked Lila yet. She wanted to understand why. They arrived at a high-rise tucked discreetly between glass towers and steel shadows. There was no sign out front, no name, just a guarded entrance and a man who nodded once at Min and opened the door without question. The elevator ride was silent. Imani felt the shift in air as they rose higher, pressure easing, noise fading. Her ears popped softly, grounding her in her body again. When the doors opened, she stepped into a penthouse that felt less like a home and more like a command center disguised as luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the space, revealing the city in full sprawl, beautiful and ruthless. Soft lights glowed along the edges of the room. Everything was clean, minimal, deliberate. Min removed his coat and draped it over a chair.
You can sit, he said gently.
She did, but her eyes kept moving. You live here? She asked. Sometimes, he answered. I move when necessary. That alone told her more than most men ever did. Imani finally picked up her phone. I need to hear it again, she said. From her. But this time, I won't soften it. Min didn't interrupt. She called Lila. It rang twice. Imani, Lila said instantly, her voice fragile now. Thank God. I was scared. Imani exhaled slowly. You should be, she said. Lila went quiet. Tell me the truth, Imani continued. All of it, from the beginning. A sniffle. He said he liked you, Lila whispered. Said he'd been watching you for months. That you were perfect. Imani closed her eyes. And you didn't think that was strange? I thought it was flattering, Lila said defensively. You always have men staring at you. I didn't think. You thought about money, Imani cut in. Silence confirmed it. How much? Imani asked. Lila hesitated. Say it. 10,000. The number landed heavy. $10,000. That's what her friendship was worth. That was it. Imani asked quietly. My safety. My dignity. I didn't know he would drug you. Lila cried. He said he just wanted you relaxed. Open. Imani laughed softly, humorless. You helped to map me, she said. My habits. My fears. My trust. Yes, Lila whispered. The word cracked something open. Imani ended the call, without another word. Her hands were steady now. Min watched her closely. You recorded that, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, she replied. That was wise. She looked at him then, really looked. Who are you? She asked again. Because men like you don't just notice things. You anticipate them. Min walked toward the windows, city lights reflecting in his eyes. My father built an empire, he said calmly. I inherited its enemies. Imani swallowed. Korean Mafia, she said softly. He turned. Among other things. Fear flickered, then settled. Are you going to hurt her? Imani asked. Min tilted his head slightly. That depends, he said. On what you want. She considered that. Power. Not borrowed. Not imposed. Offered. I don't want revenge, she said slowly. I want truth. Consequences. And distance. Min nodded. Then that is what will happen. He picked up his phone and made one call, brief, quiet, in a language she didn't understand. When he hung up, he met her gaze. Jaden is awake, he said. And talking. Imani's stomach tightened. What about the police? They have enough to hold him, Min said. But not enough to stop him forever. She understood. So, you're the insurance. A faint smile touched his lips. Yes. She rose from the couch, walking toward the window beside him. For the first time that night, she felt taller, stronger. I lost my best friend, she said. But I found my clarity. Min glanced at her. Clarity is dangerous, he said. It changes what you tolerate. She nodded. Good. Below them, the city pulsed, unaware that lines had been crossed, that protection had shifted hands, that consequences were already moving. Imani folded her arms, steady and unafraid. Whatever comes next, she said, I want to face it awake. Min inclined his head. Then stay, he said. Tonight. As my guest. Not my obligation. She met his gaze. And for the first time since the night began, she didn't feel hunted. She felt chosen. Night settled deeper over the city, turning the windows of the penthouse into dark mirrors. Imani could see her reflection now, standing beside Min, arms folded, posture straight. She barely recognized herself. She looked steadier than she felt. Min poured tea in the kitchen area, the movements precise, practiced. The sound of liquid meeting porcelain cut gently through the silence. "You should drink something warm," he said. "Your body's still processing shock." Imani accepted the cup when he handed it to her. Their fingers brushed briefly. It wasn't electric. It was grounding. She wrapped both hands around the cup and inhaled. Jasmine. Subtle.
Clean.
"You don't treat people like things," she said suddenly. Min glanced at her. "Is that a question or a statement?" "An observation," she replied. "Men with power usually remind you of it constantly. You haven't." He leaned against the counter, considering. "My mother taught me that power is loud only when it's insecure." Imani took a sip. "Where is she?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "Gone," he said finally. "Because my father forgot that lesson." Something in his tone told her not to ask more. Not yet. They moved back toward the living area. Outside, the city glittered, unaware that inside this glass-wrapped space, two lives were quietly recalibrating. "Tell me about him," Imani said softly.
Jaden.
"Why him?" Min's jaw tightened just slightly.
He's disposable, he said.
Men like him believe they're clever because they orbit bigger predators and never realize they're being used too. "So, he's not the worst of them," she murmured. "No," Min agreed. "He's just foolish enough to think consent can be manufactured." The word hit her harder than she expected. Manufactured. Imani set her cup down carefully. "I keep thinking about the version of me that might have woken up tomorrow not knowing what happened," she said. "And the version of me everyone would have blamed anyway." Min's voice dropped. "That version never existed," he said firmly. "Because I didn't allow it to." She looked at him, then really looked, not as a savior, but as a man who had chosen restraint when cruelty would have been easier.
"You didn't know me," she said.
"You had no reason to care." "I had every reason," he replied. "You were targeted." She shook her head. "That happens to women every day." "Yes," he said quietly. "And that is precisely why I cared." Something shifted between them then, an understanding that didn't require romance, only respect. Imani moved to the window again. "Do you ever wish you were normal?" she asked. "Anonymous?" Min joined her. "Anonymity is a luxury," he said. "Safety is the currency I trade in instead." She laughed softly. "That's a heavy way to live." "Yes," he said. "But it's lighter when you choose what you protect." Her heartbeat quickened at that. Later, she found herself curled up on one end of the couch, a blanket draped over her shoulders. The adrenaline had finally begun to drain, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Min sat in a chair nearby, reading something on his tablet, though his attention flicked to her more often than the screen. "You can sleep," he said. "No one will come here." "How can you be so sure?" she asked. "Because anyone who would try already knows better." That should have terrified her. Instead, it soothed. "Min," she said quietly. "Yes. If I stay, I don't want to be hidden or protected like glass. I want agency." He studied her carefully. "Then you will have it," he said. "Protection without autonomy is just another cage." She smiled faintly. "Good. I've had enough cages for one lifetime." Minutes passed. Then more. Imani drifted, but not fully. Her mind wandered, looping memories and near misses, until one thought finally surfaced. "What happened to your father?" she asked, eyes still closed. Min's voice came slower this time. "He's alive," he said, "but he no longer controls what he built." Imani opened her eyes. "You took it from him." "Yes." "Why?" "Because he believed fear was the only way to rule. And you don't." Min met her gaze. "I believe loyalty is stronger." She absorbed that. "You're dangerous," she said. "Yes," he agreed, "but not without direction." She slept then, truly slept, for the first time that night. She woke near dawn, the city softened by pale light. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Panic fluttered, then settled as memory returned. She sat up slowly. Min stood in the kitchen again, sleeves rolled up this time, hair slightly undone. The sight was unexpectedly human. "Coffee?" he asked without turning. She smiled. "Yes, please." They stood together as the sun rose, steam curling from their mugs. What happens next? She asked. Next, he said. Jaden finishes talking. The people who thought you were unprotected learn they were wrong. And you decide what kind of distance you want from this world. And you? She asked. I remain what I am, he said. Unless you decide otherwise. She considered him, over the rim of her cup. I don't know what this is yet, she said. But I know one thing. What? I'm not afraid anymore. Min inclined his head, something like approval in his eyes. Then you are already stronger than most. Outside, the city fully awakened. And somewhere in its depths, the people who had underestimated Imani were beginning to understand the cost of that mistake. Morning didn't erase the night. It only revealed it more clearly. Imani stood beneath the shower in Min's penthouse, letting warm water run down her shoulders, trying to rinse away the residue of fear that still clung to her skin. The mirror beside the glass reflected a woman changed, not shattered, not hardened, but sharpened. Her eyes held more weight now. When she dressed, choosing simple clothes Min's assistant had discreetly delivered, she felt grounded, intentional, no longer drifting through the aftermath. She was present in it. Outside the bathroom, the penthouse hummed with quiet movement. Min was already awake, already working. She stepped into the living space and immediately sensed it, an undercurrent of tension beneath the calm. Voices murmured behind closed doors. Phones buzzed and went silent. Men moved with purpose, not panic. Min looked up when he saw her. Good morning, he said, his tone gentle despite the steel beneath it. Something's happening, she replied. Yes. He didn't rush to explain. He never rushed. He waited until she joined him at the table, until she had coffee in her hands, until she met his eyes fully. Jaden talked, he said. Imani felt her chest tighten, but she didn't look away. What did he say? He said what men like him always say when consequences finally arrive, Min replied. Enough truth to survive. Not enough to be forgiven. She nodded slowly. And Lila? Min exhaled. She tried to run. That hurt more than she expected. She always does, Imani said quietly. When things get real. She didn't get far. Imani absorbed that. What happens to them? She asked. Min's gaze sharpened. Not cruel, but exact. That, he said, depends on what justice looks like to you. She set her cup down. This was the moment she'd been circling since the lounge. The moment where anger begged to be weaponized. I don't want blood, she said carefully. I want accountability, exposure, and certainty that they can't do this to anyone else. Min inclined his head. Then, that is what they will receive. Jaden sat in a stark, windowless room when Imani finally saw him again. Not in person, on a screen.
He looked smaller now.
Not physically, but in spirit. The confidence had leaked out of him, leaving only fear and calculation behind. He spoke rapidly, voice shaking. I didn't force anyone, he said. I swear.
It was just supposed to make her relaxed.
Everyone does it. Imani felt heat rise in her chest.
Pause it, she said.
Min did. Everyone does it, she repeated softly. That's what he told himself. Yes, Min said. Normalization is how predators sleep at night. She swallowed. What happens after this recording? She asked. It goes to the authorities, Min replied. And to the people who gave him access, money, and confidence. Imani nodded. And his future? Min's mouth curved slightly. Not in satisfaction, but finality.
He will be watched, he said.
Closely. Always. That was enough. Lila was different. When her face appeared on the second screen, Imani felt something unexpected. Not rage, but grief. Her best friend looked wrecked. Mascara streaked. Hands trembling. Fear naked in her eyes. Imani, Lila cried.
Please.
I made a mistake. You made a choice, Imani corrected calmly. I was desperate, Lila sobbed. You don't know what it's been like, watching you succeed while I struggled. Imani flinched, but didn't retreat. I loved you, she said. And you resented me. Lila broke. I didn't think he'd hurt you, she whispered. I swear. Imani's voice lowered. You didn't care enough to make sure. Silence filled the room. Then Imani said the hardest thing she'd ever said. You don't get access to me anymore. Lila shook her head frantically. Please. No. Imani said steady. This is the consequence. The screen went dark. Imani closed her eyes. Something old and painful finally loosened its grip. By late afternoon, the city shifted again. News traveled quietly, but efficiently. Names were flagged. Patterns uncovered. Jaden was no longer just a man who'd collapsed at a lounge. He was a liability. And liabilities were isolated. Imani watched the city from the window, once more. Does it ever stop? She asked. This world you're in? Min joined her. No, he said honestly. It only changes shape. She nodded. And if I walk away now? Then you walk away protected, he replied. With distance. With boundaries. With your life intact. She turned to him. And if I don't? Then you step closer, he said. Eyes open.
By choice.
The weight of that settled between them. This wasn't romance. This was alignment. She took a breath. I won't be owned, she said. I wouldn't allow it, Min replied immediately. I won't be silenced. You won't be. I won't become hard just to survive. Min studied her with something like admiration. Then you will change the rules simply by existing. A beat passed. Then another. Outside, the sun dipped toward the horizon. Imani straightened. Then here's my choice, she said. I won't run. But I won't disappear either. I'll live my life, louder, clearer, and safer. Min inclined his head. Then I will ensure the safety part, he said. Until you no longer need it. She met his gaze. And after that? A pause. Then, he said, we'll see what remains. That night, as darkness reclaimed the city, Imani stood steady within it, not hidden, not hunted.
Protected, yes.
But more than that,
Aware.
and for the first time, the world that had tried to break her realized it had miscalculated.
Badly.
The city looked different when you stopped running from it. Imani realized that as she stood on the balcony just before sunrise, wrapped in a soft robe, the wind cool against her skin. The skyline stretched endlessly before her, steel and glass and stories stacked on top of one another. Somewhere down there, people were waking up to ordinary mornings, unaware of how close her life had come to splintering into something unrecognizable. She wasn't angry anymore. That surprised her most. The rage had burned hot and fast, doing what it needed to do. Fuel clarity, sharpen boundaries, sever illusions. But now it was gone, leaving behind something steadier.
Authority.
Behind her, the quiet click of the balcony door sounded. She didn't turn right away. She knew who it was. She'd grown used to Min's presence. Not looming, not demanding, just there. That look suits you, he said softly. She smiled faintly. Which one? The one where you're no longer asking the world for permission. She turned then, leaning back against the railing. Last night, she said, I thought choosing peace meant walking away from everything connected to danger. And now, he asked, and now I know peace is knowing exactly where you stand. Min nodded. Clarity does that. They stood in silence for a moment, watching dawn begin to bleed color into the sky. Imani broke it. I'm leaving today, she said. Min didn't react immediately. Not running, she added. Just returning to my life. He met her gaze. I assumed you would. That eased something in her chest. I don't want to be absorbed into your world, she continued. But I don't want to pretend it never brushed against mine either. He considered her carefully. You won't be erased, he said. And you won't be followed. Good, she replied. Because I intend to be visible.
A pause.
Will you regret this? He asked. She shook her head.
No.
I'll remember it. That's different. By mid-morning, arrangements were already made, not because she asked, but because Min understood logistics as a form of respect. A car waited downstairs, discreet and unmarked. Before she left, Imani stopped in the penthouse doorway and looked back one last time. At the windows. The stillness. The man who had changed her trajectory, without trying to own it. I don't know what this is, she said. Min stepped closer, but not too close. Neither do I, he said. But it isn't a debt. She smiled. Good. I don't do those anymore. He inclined his head slightly, something like a bow. If you ever need distance, he said, you'll have it. And if I ever need truth, she asked. His eyes softened. Then you'll know where to find me. They didn't hug. They didn't kiss. They didn't promise. They didn't need to. Imani walked away on her own feet, spine straight, head high. Life didn't pause for her healing. It never had. The city greeted her with its usual chaos: traffic, noise, color, momentum. But she moved through it differently now. She noticed who stood too close, who spoke too smoothly, who mistook her kindness for access. And she corrected them. Quietly, firmly, without apology. Lila tried to reach out once more. A message. Long, emotional, full of regret and self-pity. Imani didn't respond. Some chapters didn't deserve epilogues. Jaden faded from relevance quickly. His name circulated briefly, then became a cautionary footnote. Men like him depended on anonymity.
He no longer had it.
Weeks passed, then months. Imani thrived. Not dramatically, not performatively,
But deeply.
she poured herself into work, into friendships that felt mutual, into mornings that began without dread. She laughed more easily, slept more soundly, trusted herself more than she ever had before. One evening, as she sat alone on her own balcony, wine glass in hand, her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. She stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Yes," she said. Min's voice came through calm as ever. "I wanted you to know," he said, "that everything stayed quiet." She smiled softly. "Thank you for telling me." A pause. "And you?" he asked. "I stayed loud," she replied. That earned a low chuckle. "Good," he said. "That suits you." They spoke for a while, not about danger, not about the past, but about music, cities, things they missed, and things they refused to regret. Before they hung up, he said one last thing. "You were never saved," he said. "You were protected for a moment. The rest, you did yourself." Imani closed her eyes. "I know," she said. Later that night, as the city lights flickered on one by one, Imani stood in her reflection and finally saw what had been forming all along. Not a victim, not a survivor, not a woman defined by proximity to darkness, but a woman who had faced it, named it, and walked forward anyway. Some stories end in safety. Some end in love. Hers ended in choice. And that was the most dangerous thing of all.